Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Today, we are taking a hard look at the reality of the 21st century workforce. It's evolving incredibly fast, and it is more hyperdiverse than literally at any other point in history. We aren't just talking about local hiring anymore. We're talking about organizations employing people across widely different regions, cultures, languages, and educational backgrounds. The globalization of talent is a massive shift, and understanding how it functionally works and, more importantly, how to actually manage it is absolutely vital for any modern professional who wants to succeed. But that brings up a really fascinating question. Is a diverse workplace automatically productive? It's super tempting to think that just hiring people from a bunch of different backgrounds guarantees organizational success. We so often fall into the trap of treating diversity like a simple numbers game, right? Like it's just a corporate quota to meet, and once we have a mix of people in a room, we've crossed the finish line. Well, the research shows that merely having a diverse headcount does not automatically translate to a thriving, productive environment, not without some other crucial elements firmly in place. In fact, our source material points out a pretty major reality check. Diversity alone cannot produce positive organizational outcomes without equity and inclusion. You could literally have the most demographically diverse workforce on the entire planet, but if you stop there, you're missing the engine that actually drives those positive outcomes. Think of diversity as the raw fuel. Having the fuel is great. It's necessary, actually. But without the engine of equity and inclusion to ignite and channel that energy, the car just isn't going anywhere. You're basically just sitting on a tank full of unrealized potential. So here is our roadmap for today to understand how this all works. First, we'll look at the modern diverse workplace. Then, we'll be unpacking D, E, and I. Third, we'll look at why DEI actually matters. Fourth, we'll cover the types of workplace diversity. And finally, HR's role in building inclusion. Let's start with Section 1, the modern diverse workplace, beyond the hiring phase. The reality is, while modern workplaces are incredibly diverse, merely employing different people is only step one. Which brings us to Section 2, unpacking D, E, and I, defining the acronym. We hear this buzzword constantly, so let's clear up some common corporate misconceptions and break down each specific letter. All right, let's start with the D, diversity. Simply put, this is just the presence of differences among people within an organization. It's having varied backgrounds, characteristics, experiences, and perspectives all working together. It's that baseline recognition that every single individual is unique and contributes differently. In a real-world context, this looks like walking into a team meeting and seeing people from 3 different generations, multiple cultural backgrounds, and entirely different career trajectories, all bringing their own distinct viewpoints to the table. Now, let's shift to the E, equity. This means providing fair treatment, equal opportunities, and appropriate support according to individual needs. And the crucial point here is how it contrasts with diversity. While diversity is about acknowledging differences, equity explicitly focuses on recognizing those differences to actively remove the specific barriers that prevent equal participation. It's the active leveling of the playing field so that everyone gets a genuine chance to thrive.
This is a great way to illustrate the difference between equality and equity, because they are constantly confused. Equality is giving everyone the exact same opportunity, like giving every employee the identical standard training module. But equity is providing assistive technology to someone with a disability so they actually have a fair opportunity to complete that training. Equality is about identical resources. Equity is about providing the needed support for a genuinely fair shot. It's realizing that giving everyone the same size shoe isn't helpful at all if everyone has a different sized foot, right?
And that brings us to the I, inclusion. This is all about creating a workplace where every employee feels respected, valued, accepted, and able to contribute fully. The stakes here are incredibly high. It's about establishing a safe, collaborative environment where employees can express ideas and participate in decision-making entirely without fear of discrimination, without fear of exclusion, and without fear of being shouted down. It's making sure every single employee feels they truly, genuinely belong. Because when people feel safe, they do their best work. So to put it all together and see how these 3 distinct concepts work seamlessly, diversity focuses on different people, which brings in varied perspectives. Equity focuses on fair access and opportunity, resulting in appropriate support, and inclusion focuses on a sense of belonging, resulting in a truly collaborative environment. They are totally distinct concepts, but they rely entirely on each other within the DEI framework to actually function. Next up, Section 3, why DEI actually matters, the business case. We're shifting gears here from ethical responsibilities to how DEI acts as a highly strategic, powerful business driver. companies aren't just doing this for optics. It directly supports organizational performance and raw competitiveness. First off, it encourages innovation. When you put people with varied backgrounds in a room, they don't share the same blind spots. They challenge each other, leading directly to more creative, out-of-the-box solutions. Second, it drastically improves decision-making. Diverse teams actively avoid groupthink because they are forced to consider multiple viewpoints before acting. This friction, when it's healthy, leads to significantly more balanced, thoroughly vetted outcomes. It also heavily enhances employee engagement. People are just more motivated, they stay longer, and they work harder when they feel respected and heard. Plus, it strengthens the organization's overall reputation, acting like a magnet for top-tier talent. And finally, it improves customer understanding. A diverse workforce inherently understands the nuances and pain points of a wildly diverse global customer base way better than a homogeneous team ever could. It is just a straight line to better business.
Let's move to Section 4, Types of Workplace Diversity, and the forms it takes in the workplace, because diversity is absolutely not just one monolithic thing.
You have demographic diversity, which is what most of us immediately think of: age, gender, ethnicity, nationality. But there's also educational diversity, meaning different qualifications and areas of specialization. Then there's functional diversity, which is about different organizational roles, like finance, marketing, or operations working together. And finally, cognitive diversity. This is a huge one. It means differences in thinking styles, problem solving, and creativity. While demographic diversity is about who people are, cognitive diversity is about how they process information. You might have two people with the exact same background, but one is an analytical, step-by-step thinker, and the other is an intuitive, big-picture visionary. Our source notes that capturing this cognitive diversity is the secret sauce that really fuels organizational innovation. And our final section, number 5, HR's role in building inclusion, implementation, and barriers. Let's ground this theory into reality and see how human resources actively implements these strategies.
HR essentially injects DEI into the entire employee lifecycle. Here are the 3 main steps. Step 1, inclusive recruitment, ensuring selection is based entirely on competence, qualifications, and job requirements, completely free from unnecessary bias. Step 2, fair performance evaluation. This means using clearly defined objective criteria to review employees. This is actually incredibly hard to implement because, let's face it, human beings naturally rely on gut feelings, so HR has to build strict frameworks to keep evaluations focused purely on output and data. And step 3 is providing equal career opportunities across the board for promotion, training, and leadership, ensuring the latter is genuinely accessible to everyone.
But, it's not always smooth sailing. There are very realistic barriers HR faces. Some are deeply rooted in human nature, things like stereotyping, prejudice, unconscious bias, and outright discrimination. Others are more structural, like poor communication, cultural misunderstandings, and just a general stubborn resistance to change. And acknowledging these hurdles is absolutely essential. We can't just pretend a workplace is perfect. Recognizing that these flaws exist is the required first step to actually dismantling them. So how do they overcome these barriers? Well, modern organizations are integrating some pretty fascinating practices to tackle this head-on. For instance, they're using AI-assisted bias detection in recruitment. This tech scans job descriptions for alienating language, or it reviews resumes by stripping out demographic indicators to proactively weed out human unfairness. They're also investing heavily in inclusive leadership development and flexible working arrangements to accommodate different life needs, whether that's for a working parent or someone managing a disability. They lean into anonymous employee feedback platforms to hear what's actually happening on the ground. And crucially, they use hard diversity metrics in HR analytics. They aren't just guessing anymore, they are measuring inclusion the exact same way they measure sales or retention. Which brings us to this powerful insight from our source material that really sums up this entire framework. True organizational success depends on inclusion. We absolutely cannot emphasize this enough. A diverse hiring strategy means nothing without an inclusive culture. People only contribute their best ideas, take creative risks, and perform effectively when they genuinely believe they are respected, treated fairly, and valued regardless of their background. And so I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Is your workplace just diverse, or is it truly inclusive? Take a second to think about your own organizational culture. Are you guys just checking demographic boxes, or is your organization actively removing barriers and fostering a deep sense of belonging? It's a critical difference, and it's the one that defines the truly successful workplaces of the 21st century. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gives you a powerful new lens for looking at your own organization.